My employer, so I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we can pass it.
I took your agenda.
So I'll just say abstain.
No, it's all,
Do I need to give a reason or I just?
It'll work.
it'll work.
I can see it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Up to everyone for how I say
Yeah.
abstain because.
It's the bar graph.
Welcome, call the meeting to order, and very pleased to have a nice audience here, which so we'll start with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically Nooksack and Lummi tribes, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. On behalf of everyone here, we want to express our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors, the Nooksack and Lummi tribes, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The agenda, any changes from this?
I think the only change we might need to do a 45-minute executive session instead of the 30
So
minutes there, but we can
we
keep it as
have-
30 and extend it.
Okay, so
if needed.
we will, so 45 total? Okay. So with the, we do have the executive session mentioned, but so the time will be. for-
Right now it's set for 30 minutes.
Okay.
We may need 45, but
With that change, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda with that change.
Motion to approve the agenda with that change.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then, next is public comments. Anyone signed up?
No comments.
With that, no one
Nobody
signed
signed
up?
up.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak? No? Okay. Then go to the order.
So I just had a couple items for last week. We sent out the first newsletter that was like the district-wide newsletter. And so there's also that goes automatically to all staff and families. But there's also a mechanism in there that if there's a community member who's interested in getting that, there's a link there. And we'll be putting that on our website and kind of reminders out on Facebook too. So make sure that everybody has access to that. And then it's also October is Principal Appreciation Month, and we've got 3 of our very hardworking principals here. And so I just want to acknowledge them and the work that they do to lead not only their students, but their staff, and just the hard work and long hours that they put in. So thank you for them. And our choir recently, I think it was just last weekend, also participated in a competition. I forgot to write down the details on that, but I know that our choir teacher was really proud of the work they did and how well they represented Mount Baker.
Thank you. So information from board, I'll start with you, Danielle.
No comment this evening.
Just information, a couple Fridays ago, we went and visited the elementary schools, and that was very good. Seen a lot of good things. The kids were having a great time and was able to see the game plan for the year and how great it seems to be starting out at all three schools. So that was good. And great football game last Friday, so that was good too. And that's all.
I don't have anything to say, thank you.
Just say I've been attending a lot of sporting events lately, football, volleyball. Our students are really well coached. They're thriving, they're engaged, the fans are really engaged as well. So and I think the more we can do to kind of promote and celebrate these things, the more families are going to want to show up. And you know, we've got a lot of students are doing multiple sports, which are things that larger school districts can't really offer. So we've got some things to share and help get the message out there.
Nice.
So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. And yes, along with you, Jason, the elementary school visits were very good and interesting, and I think help us be able to be in position to cover or tonight, part of tonight's agenda, the on the elementary presentations. And each elementary school has different challenges, different population, and I think we had enough opportunities at each school to sort of get a good sense, or at least an initial sense of how the year's starting and what those challenges and opportunities are. So I thought that was very, very good. I attended Acme PTA meeting, which really strong PTA there this year, and I plan to go back again and be part of the agenda the next time. So the Washington State School Directors General Assembly, pretty low key this year. I think the main work is still what we're completing now, which is prioritizing those top 10 items that for WASDA to focus on in this upcoming year. Although I think really what the focus is going to be the leftover legislative business from last year, because we got so little of what we needed to last year. You know, particularly MSOCs continue to the materials and supplies insurance costs continue to rise, and we didn't get them funded enough last year, and so they're rising even more than they were last year. So I think we've got our work cut out, and plus the state has I think a $900 million deficit. So it's not going to be an easy year to get anything through. I think the issues for us continue to be the same: full funding of basic education, the materials and the supplies funding, stabilizing our district budgets, support for special ed, transportation, transition to K, which I think we got about that close to, and I would like to see that happen. Of course, always a forest revenue, and then this year, something that we haven't really focused on so much is federal funding, because federal funding had kind of happened in the background year after year after year, but then all of a sudden we're hit with the chance that we may lose significant chunks of it, and so I think that's going to take more effort for the State School Directors Association at the federal level than we normally do. I met with the Commissioner of Public Lands twice this month, trying to make the case on the our concerns with withdrawing the 77,000 acres of older forest from harvest for the next 5 or so years. The second time I talked with him, he is starting to admit that, yes, that will require cutting younger forests. You know, which is, I mean, duh, but what that does is you'll have to cut between 2 and 4 times as many acres to get the same required annual cut. The annual cut is established by the Board of Natural Resources, so the DNR is obligated to meet that annual cut, but having to cut it from more acres, then you deplete your future growth on those acres. So it's really continuing to get that across. And I did ask him about the schedule for freeing up for bringing the sales that had been held off for the last 6 months, bringing to the Board of Natural Resources. And he said they plan to bring 10 or so sales in the next month or so out of the 20 that were held. So within the next several months, or at least the next, several months probably, to get those 20 sales. And I'll have to check and see which, if any of our pending sales are going to be included in that first batch. I don't know yet. So anyway, so keep at that. And that's all I have.
I thought of something. I don't know if you guys have already voted for the district area. Our district area one is the WASDA, has new voting. But I want to give my endorsement for Joe Green-Heron for our area. Talked with him at the last time when we were at the Bellingham district area get together, and he is great. So
Okay.
that's my
Yeah.
thought on that.
And that also includes the State Board of Education. So there's a number of and the ESD, which there's only one candidate per position for the ESD. So you get
Yeah,
a chance to approve the people that have been there for a long time, including Mark Penn. But yeah, if you haven't done that, I can't remember what the date is, but it's
Like next week, I think.
the 16th, I think, yeah. But it's easy to do.
Yep.
Just click on the link. Good. Next up is the consent agenda. Oh, you want to say about the consent agenda?
Yeah, I did have a comment. I'm going to abstain because I have a conflict of interest with money going to my employer.
Okay. You'll have to.
Thank you.
Do
I know you do.
Thank you for noting.
it. I'll hold you down.
So,
wanna hear any crickets.
with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Thank you. Next up is superintendent informational items.
I just have a few items tonight. The first, to your point, Russ, around timber sales, we do know that we have I don't know which sale it actually is, so I can give you the detail, but we're waiting for our county treasurer's report. We know we did get something, so that'll be part of our next presentation in 2 weeks, just around what our current situation is with the budget, especially with lower enrollment. We might want to hold off on doing anything with that timber money until we've got a better idea of what's happening.
Do you know what the expected amount of that check is?
I want to say around 40,000, but don't
40,
quote
okay.
me on that. And it's split between enrichment and capital projects. So, but we'll have those details in full.
Okay, yeah, it
at the
sounds
next
like
board meeting.
some of Old Red Mountain
It was probably the right of way.
and Little Lily, yeah, because Little Lily's less than 40.
Okay.
So,
So yeah, we'll have that. I know that Gitana's working really hard on all the year-end work. So toward the end of October, she'll be a little bit closer to that idea of just what our ending fund balance really is for closing out 24-25, which will help us make decisions about 25-26. More to come on that. Another update is within the next week, we're hopeful that we'll be able to put out to the public a new like emergency tip line. There was an incident a couple of weeks ago where we got some information about a student concern late at night, and the line that we currently have goes to the district office. And through our vector alert system, we can set that up so that we have if somebody called that line, myself, Shannon Richardson, our operations director, principals would get texts or messages about that. So, between a group of us, we would be able to someone would be able to respond to it, and we'd have a plan for that. So that's not set up yet, but just want to let you know that's coming. And
What's the estimate on how long that might take to get that set up?
I'm hoping within the next week. So we
wow.
just got information today from Vector that they're whatever processes they have to do on their end, that's in the works, and it's no cost to us in addition to what we're already paying for our insurance costs. So gets us just a little bit safer. And then last week, I also sent our ASB and advisor and our high school principal information about the student rep process. And so the students have a kind of a job description and an idea of what the student rep position is. And then there's also the application. And I've asked for those applications to be turned in, I believe, by the 24th. Yes, by the 24th, so that we would have time to then look at the applications and then schedule a special board meeting to review the applications and interview students. So that's in the works. I think within November, December, we'll have our student reps in place. And that's all I have.
So next is this is so lengthy now in the wording. Teaching and learning, elementary presentation.
Yes. I'm going to ask our elementary principals and our teaching and learning director to come on down. We'll pull up a few extra chairs. Yep. Come on down. So what I'm going to do, we have a presentation for you. And again, this kind of builds off of the site visit that you had a couple weeks ago. And so you got a chance to see some of the work that our principals are doing and with their teachers and their students. And so if I can remember how to share my screen, I will get our presentation up there for you.
By the way, thank you all for coming this evening. It's very good to have you here.
So this first slide is just a little bit of an introduction about how I'm looking at the work that we're doing together. This is called the Leadership and Learning Matrix. A researcher named Douglas Reeves is the author of this. But it's really looking at, in education specifically, the adult actions that we take can have generally one of four outcomes. If we are not seeing the results that we want and we don't know why we're seeing that, we just kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again and get the same four results, that would be the losing quadrant. If we're still getting low results, but we know we're keeping track of what we're doing and how we're doing it, and we know what didn't work, so next time we're going to try something different, that's learning. And so that's still not where we necessarily want to be, but it's headed in the right direction. Lucky is happens a lot in education where we see what we want and we have no idea how we got there. It's like, well, glad it worked out that way. And so that's something that we also need to be really cautious about, because it can feel good to have good results, but if we're not able to replicate them, if we're not able to make them happen over time, or if something changes within our student population or our budgets or other things, and we don't know how that's going to affect our results, that's not a good place to be. And then of course, the ultimate goal is leading, that we have high results, the outcomes that we want, they're well planned, we know why we got them, and we know we're going to be able to replicate them over time. And so what you're going to hear about tonight is some data around what our current reality is, where we are, and some of so that'll be something that Bridget and I share to begin with. And then our three principals are going to be talking about the intentional planning and strategies that they're taking so that we have that goal of increased student achievement. And our plan right now is to either be in the learning quadrant or the leading quadrant. And so that's the frame that we're looking at this with. So I'm going to start sharing some of the 2025 Smarter Balanced Assessment. This all comes from the OSPI report card. And then Bridget's going to follow up with some of our more internal iReady data that our students have been completing as well as I think this last month. So we look at grades 3 through 6. That's because we don't give the Smarter Balance to students who are younger than 3rd grade. And the red bars represent the Metal District, and the gray is the state average in ELA. So ELA is English Language Arts, something to do with reading and writing. And got I think a celebration there with 5th grade, where we're just almost right there at the state average. And so we need to be looking at, okay, so what was happening in 5th grade that was contributing to that? And then other areas where we've got work to do, but I think you're going to hear some ideas tonight about how we're looking at that work. We also created some graphs where we're breaking down each grade, and it's important to look at progress over time. So that first slide was just one snapshot just this last school year, but here you can see, for the most part, 2020 through 2025. And it's really interesting to me to see that, year to year, we're the state is more or less staying rather steady, but here in Mount Baker, we've got some ups and downs. And so that's something that we need to take a look at, maybe asking some questions about why, and also looking at cohort data, which this does not represent, but looking at that as well over time. Again, you've got 5th grade that's this last year, just about where the state is at, and 6th grade has mirrored the state over time pretty closely as well. So that's ELA. In math, we have the same information. And when I look at this data, what stands out to me is that, yes, we have work to do with improving reading and writing skills of our students, but math is something that I really want us to be looking at more closely because I see a greater need there. So that's the overall 3rd through 6th with math. And then you just see some wider gaps there in math at each grade, most grade levels there. And then my favorite subject, science. Science is only tested in grades 5, 8, and 11. So that makes it kind of hard to track over time, because if, as a 5th grade teacher, if my kinder through 4th grade colleagues aren't also teaching science, because with the different grade level standards that there are, it makes it really hard for a 5th grade teacher then to meet standard. But you can see that we're last year narrowing that gap. And so we're going to continue talking about how we can improve science. And the nice thing about science is that it incorporates reading and writing, and it incorporates math and critical thinking. And so you can hit a lot of subject areas within science, which again is why it's my bias favorite. Okay, so I'll let Bridget describe what iReady is, and then you let me know when you're ready to look at the result.
So as you recall, last year, we went through a process to determine a new assessment platform. And so that took a fair amount of time, and we had a committee from the district, and the decision was to move forward with iReady. So as we look at iReady, which is a diagnostic assessment, plus it has other features that teachers can be using within the classroom, as well as parents and families can be using it at home as well. So Danielle, you may have had some awareness right now, or you will in the near future. But it is a new tool. So as we look at this data, a little bit different than the Smarter Balance assessment information, because we just have one point at this time. So it does cover, this is for ELA. So the way that they are measuring is that, or representing, and these are all 3 of our schools together, from the left to the right. On the left is mid or above grade level. It's early on grade level. That yellow bar, which is a little high, 1 grade level below. 2 grade levels below, and then 3 or more grade levels below. Just as important with anything, this is one data point, but it's an important one. And one of the reasons that we selected iReady was it does mirror the Smarter Balance results as well. And so we want to ensure that what we're doing with students is represented in more than one area. Math, same layout on the far left, mid or above grade level. And you just see that yellow bar in the middle. So definitely areas of focus in the math area, which also is replicated with the Smarter Balance assessment. And kudos to our elementary team. iReady was brand new this year for everybody. Thankfully, Kim has had some experience. So we've been able to lean into her knowledge to ensure that we have a good start. But it's definitely a year of using the assessment correctly. And there's a lot of bells and whistles, but we really want to make sure that we're doing the assessment with integrity and that teachers have the opportunity to understand the information.
The nice thing about a tool like iReady is we don't have to wait till the end of the school year when we take the ESPA test to make adjustments. So if we see things here that we know we need to address, we can start working on that with the goal of being able to improve those state scores at the end of the year. Okay. So before we get to the, I just remembered I skipped a slide on here, so I was going to say there. So that's the data, that's our current reality and where we're at. So we're using that data to drive the work that we're doing in each building. So the principals have been looking at this information, they've been looking at it with their teachers, planning the different things that they do with their collaboration time and their professional development time. Tomorrow there's no school because the teachers are working on professional development. And what the principals are about to talk about is going to be, they're going to be working on their iReady information, but they're also going to be working toward their school improvement goals. And so I believe we're starting with Acme, and each building has a
Before
couple
we go on to
slides.
the next one, did I understand right that iReady both identifies areas of weakness and provides some tools to deal with those weak areas? So you've got more than just the bar graph.
Definitely.
All right, well, I apologize ahead of time for the text heavy things, but I thought, well, I'll be reading off the slide too, and I wouldn't have notes. But so I just put a little snapshot of us. This is where you can see our reading and math scores to give you an idea of how we play into the slides that we saw before for everyone. It's a pretty clear picture where the majority of our kids are at least one grade level below. So we've been working together as a team, and tomorrow, where we've already started to do some tier 2 work, but tomorrow is our big design for our WIN groups. So we're going to be doing what I need intervention groups twice a day. And we're looking at our key challenges that this test has told us that for our K3 kids, number and operations is a problem, and fractions and problem solving in grades 4 through 6. Is an area that we need to focus on. And our goal will be to go from our 28% on or above grade level to 40% by spring. And then in reading, we've got foundational phonics for K2, which is no surprise because all of the K2, that's what they're doing, is learning how to read. So that's not really a surprise. And then vocabulary and comprehension for 3 through 6. And we're looking to raise from 22 to 35% there. So how we're doing that is taking a look at our instructional planning and instructional focus. So we are, along with the other schools, you'll hear more about this, is our MTSS and the 3 tiers of instruction. So tomorrow we are really taking a look at what does our core instruction need to be to address these gaps, because clearly when you've got somebody who's 2 grade levels below, just presenting them with grade level contents isn't going to necessarily move them forward. So how do we collapse that, the content in the tier 1 so that kids are getting their needs met foundationally? And then our plan is in the tier 2, we'll be looking at the skill-based WIN groups. So some of those kids may be getting pushed onto grade level and higher material, while some might be going back to backfill. And then our tier 3 will be for those kids who have some title needs, sped needs, and also are looking at the ones that are significantly low in those 2 grade level below groups. So with that, we are really looking at focusing on foundational skill recovery for probably this year and most likely next year is my thought based on those scores that I've seen, and looking at our tiered win groups and really aligning the iReady domains with our tier 1. So iReady is coming out to work with us tomorrow, and we're specifically looking at what are our topics that we're due to teach next, and where are the kids and the skill gaps within that, and the teachers are going to have some facilitated planning with that. And we'll do we're looking at 6-week cycles and looking to, we've set an entry exit criteria for those groups that we'll be checking every 6 weeks. And I just put the staffing on there just to tell you what it is that we have in addition to the grade levels.
What does it take staff-wise to be able to accomplish, like your tiered win structure?
In an ideal world, you would have the ability to support each grade band with enough teachers to do 5 splits. The research tells you that your ideal group size for tier 2 and tier 3, you'd be looking at tier 2 groups of 6 students or less, and tier 3, of maybe 4 students or less. And we just don't have the staff for that. So we won't even come close to having those group sizes. So it'll be tight for us. We'll have bigger groups and we won't be able to really probably see the growth that we'd like to see in the time, but we're planning on using iReady and the MyPath system within iReady to help us decant some of those kids. So they'll be working on some skill and drill with the computer while a teacher is working with them, and then we'll rotate them through. So we're actually going to use the iReady, that system as another teacher.
Oh,
Any other questions specific to Acme? We're going to move on to Kendall next.
So I wanted to tie this into our SIP goals. We have the same SIP goals for math and reading. And that's going to be tiered instruction. So differentiation, the same thing that Kim is talking about. What we found at Kendall is beyond our academic gaps, we also had significant behaviors that needed to be addressed first before you could move on to teaching. Classrooms have to be managed in order to have effective teaching. So that was our main focus for the year, and we have that tied into our SIP plan. And we started off strong with that. Now that we have that, we're working on it. So we're doing a lot better, and we're seeing some gains. So now that we have that kind of underway, we're starting to move towards, okay, how do we address academic concerns? And it's going to be through that tiered model. So I put first steps. We began with behavior classroom management. Time was spent making sure those systems were correctly implemented, because the time spent now will pay off in the end. Okay. So tomorrow we're going to meet and talk about the same thing that Kim is basically doing, where we're going to meet students where they are while still teaching grade level standards. And this is a visual for you. So I think where we just as Kim said, there are primarily in all of our classrooms, you're going to see tier 2, tier 3 students. So students that are below grade level. Some classes are more than one grade level behind, and we have significant learning gaps in reading and math. So in order to effectively teach these students, we have to have this tiered model. That does not mean that we skip grade level standards. At tier 1, everyone is going to be taught grade level standards. That is our core instruction. That's the I do, we do model when you're talking about explicit instruction. What's going to be new for Kendall this year is this tier 2 core rotations implementation. That's saying that in a 90-minute ELA block, we're gonna spend 30 solid minutes working with students within our classroom to differentiate. And what that might look like, as Kim said, if students are on grade level or above grade level, they're going to have enrichment, they're going to have their MyPath individualized learning. So it's kind of working as a station, and it's getting students what they need at that time. Students who aren't in a station and a rotation group, they are going to be working with the teacher to meet their needs on core content, so on grade level standards. What that might look like, though, is depending on the learning gaps, you might have to go backwards, right? And you might have to fill in what the student needs. For an example, if we're struggling with multiplication, then we need to have repeated addition kind of brought back into the works, right? So just having, the main problem is finding the tools and the resources to give teachers, a 5th grade teacher, 1st grade reading lessons, right? Because they don't have those curriculums. So making sure that they're prepared to teach those groups. Then we move into that tier 3 section, and that's what Kindle is used to doing. However, I'm not sure it was implemented correctly in the past. We did have our title teachers pulling students at this time, but staff was continuing to teach new content. So that means that the babies that are the lowest that are getting pulled out are missing new content, creating larger gaps. So that we're pausing all learning at that tier 2, tier 3 model, and we are filling in holes that need to be worked on. So we're gonna have title teachers and classroom teachers intervening at that point. Again, students working on what they need, and this is where we're gonna go backwards intentionally to make sure that we're filling in anything that they may need. So it's meeting kids where they are and making sure that we have a high focus on all tier 2, tier 3 kids, and enriching where we can.
Great, thank you.
Any questions specific to Kendall? Okay, last but not least. Harmony up.
So first off, I'd just like to say thank you to the board for coming out to the 3 elementary schools. I think we all feel that same way, that like an informed board is a really great board. And these presentations are a good step in that direction. So thank you, Jessica. But I just want to reiterate, anytime you guys are passing by, we would love to have you guys in the schools, because seeing the beauty that happens at school, but also all the warts and everything else is part of really understanding what's going on in the schools. And having a scheduled visit is great, but also just anytime you're around, we'd love to have you there. But onto this, pardon all the pyramids, but you know, these tiered models are often represented in pyramid format, because that tier 1, what all students get, is kind of that foundation, if you will, that largest portion at the bottom. So what we have up here is on the left, what we call kind of an aspirational goal, this model that we're all aiming for of 80-15-5. 80% of students meeting success just with core instruction. In theory, another 15% of students would need some remediation to reach that success. And then a small portion, about 5% of students, will be getting really intensive interventions to support their learning. That is an aspirational or a theoretical goal. And in practice, the school that meets those 3 levels is kind of a unicorn. With that said, it's still a great thing to aim for. In the middle, you see where Washington State is at, with about 51% of students meeting benchmark, another 24 in the middle, and then about 25% of students really needing some significant intervention to find success. Over on the right, this is a little bit of apples to oranges, because we have a theoretical goal on the left, state SBAC scores in the middle, and then iReady scores on the right. But it still gives a little sense of where we're at. And iReady, as Bridget mentioned, this is just our very first stab at it. Oftentimes when we try something new, there's what's called an implementation dip, and it takes a little while to figure the tool out. Kids are figuring that tool out, teachers are figuring that tool out, and we hope to see some upswing in that. But it gives you a sense of where we're at. What this really shows me, because I've kind of just chosen to kind of give you a big 30,000-foot view of the data here rather than some granular data. What this shows me in our school is that we don't have enough students finding success just with that core instruction. And we don't have enough staff as Kim pointed out, we don't have enough staff to really provide all the intervention that we would like to do. There's no way to intervention our way out of this situation. We really need to look at what's happening in the classroom with our core instruction. So that's kind of our work here, our goal here for the year. Some action items you see there is to put our title and lap focus really at K4, and that's where we see the biggest need. So on the one hand, if we support our earliest learners the most, then they'll carry that learning forward and be more successful in the later years. But as some of the charts that Jessica shared earlier kind of show is that, you know, there is some indication that the longer kids are in our schools, the better they do. I've seen for some time now, you know, 5th grade scores, 6th grade scores tending to look better than the early year scores. So we're really trying to emphasize those early learners with some of our title app support. In-class support for tier 1 instruction in kindergarten. So again, trying to push some support into the classroom to provide more adult attention during that tier 1 instruction, trying to make that core learning that we're doing in the classroom more successful so they don't have to come out for intervention. When they do come out for intervention, we want that aligned with what's happening in the classroom. So if a kindergartner is learning the good sound in the classroom and then they're going to intervention and learning to, you know, they're doing 2 different things on the same day and it's maybe not making sense and confusing them even more. So we wanted to align what we're doing in that intervention time with what's actually happening in the classroom. It's called double dosing, and it's one of the approved or suggested intervention models in Washington State. So we're trying to provide that. And then as I talked to you guys about before, we have a school-wide focus on building engagement strategies during core instruction. So really trying to make sure that while the students are there, they're getting what they need during that core learning. And then a goal that we're carrying forward from last year is continuing with focusing on attendance. We want them while they're at school to be engaged in learning, but they can't engage if they're not at school. So what we see up here is a week by week graph of attendance data last year. We did see some progress, moving students from about 29% chronically absent rate last year down to about a current 19% chronically absent rate right now. What that means when that many students are absent, well, first of all, I mean, we saw some good success with our interventions last year based on the data, and we want to be able to continue that progress this year and see if we can continue to move the needle further and get more kids in class more often. But I mean, the obvious outcomes or impacts of that is that there's loss of instruction time for students and too much time spent reviewing lessons for teachers. So when this many students are absent, it impacts all the students, impacts the flow of the lessons and the core instruction they're getting. So action steps that we found some success in and we want to continue this year are monthly data review meetings where teachers are actually inputting their student data into a spreadsheet and developing some visuals like you see on the right, so they can actually start to visualize how their class is doing, who's falling behind attendance-wise, and developing some action steps to support those students. Continuing with what we call a family attendance support team, kind of modeled after what we do when a student has a high number of unexcused absences. We want to also capture those students with just excused absences that are ridiculously high and support the family, support the student through this team model. And then also just kind of through more data analysis, looking at what some root causes are for why students are absent so much and try to kind of start solving some of those puzzles. Yeah.
I have a question. Can you go back to Todd's first slide? So does the Washington State SBA and the iReady measure similar things? They just do it differently?
Yeah, as Bridget mentioned, they are aligned. Obviously, they're 2 separate assessments,
Right.
but the goals that they are focused on measuring are the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a pretty big difference.
It is.
Yeah.
and that's why we're here.
Okay.
Yep, that's what I tried to point out, is that that is a big difference. And we don't have enough students at Harmony finding that success in the classroom without additional support being
Right.
provided.
So for example, the 33%, like when you're first presenting the data, it said early grade level and at grade levels. So is that 30% both the light green and the dark green that we saw
I
earlier?
think, yeah, that would be kind of equivalent. The green would be students kind of at or above grade level.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so the goal is, like you said, ideally 80%.
Yep.
And, okay,
Yeah, that's that theoretical goal. Right now, I'm pushing for Washington State, hitting that state average. If we can beat that, I'm gonna feel really good right now. That's still a big jump, but that would be a really satisfying mark to hit.
Sure. And that's the combination of reading, math, and science.
This is, sorry, I did not label it very well. This is just reading data.
This is
up here
just
right
reading,
now.
I see.
But there's kind of a similar pattern in math and science.
I-
But thanks for that question, yeah.
So looking at, so you've got a smaller number of students that are at grade level or above, and then a large number that are one grade level below it, and then a significant 2 grade levels. What percentage of the time would a student who's 1 or 2 years behind spend on grade level instruction versus the time they spend on, I guess what I might guess would be instruction at the level that they are at that time?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. And our goal, our belief is that all students deserve that grade level core instruction. So we have all students in the classroom during that full reading block of 90 minutes. So they're getting, a third grader is getting third grade reading instruction, reading experience, writing, speaking, listening, all that goes into ELA. Where they're getting their individualized support is during that, one of these others mentioned win time, what I need time. So it's a specific 30 minutes set aside for intervention or acceleration for students who are highly identified as highly capable. They're getting specifically what they need in reading during that win time.
Now, I guess I could see how that works in reading maybe more than math, because math is so sequential. And what's your experience with that?
Well, I think the same. Students still need to have exposure to what's expected, as well as learning from their peers. And peer learning is a real big, powerful tool as well. If we all, like, I understand totally what you're saying about math being sequential, and that really is a barrier. But if we always have kids only in remediation, then it's really hard to give them the time and the ability to catch up to where they're supposed to be. So they need that exposure, hearing that language, hearing that vocabulary, working on the same type of material, but maybe in a modified way. Maybe it's a shorter assignment, or maybe it's a modified math problem, but still getting exposure to that same rigor and that same content. Really, really important for them to being able to eventually hit that mark at all. Yeah, so it still needs both, even though I absolutely hear what you're saying. It's tricky.
Yeah,
It's
no,
hard.
it sounds very complex that
It is.
have such a spread.
Yes. You have no idea.
I have a question for all three of you, and I know this is true in Harmony, that's where my kiddos are at. We do have a lot of classrooms that are split between grade levels, like the second, third split, third, fourth split. And then you've got students who are in the varying levels within their grade level. How does a teacher manage 2 grade levels of tier 1, and then they're juggling all of those students individual?
Well, how much time are we allotted?
We're gonna stay here till we get it solved.
Okay. Great, well, tuck in. Yeah, I mean, anybody can chime in. It's complicated, and I'd say that no one system might even be replicated the next year. It's kind of based on the students in front of you and what their needs are and what the split is too. So there's an even 50-50 split, which in some ways is the best kind of socially, but it might be the trickiest academically. There's also kind of like a small, large split where you have like a small grade level group and a much larger grade level group, and a small third and a big fourth. In those situations, you know, I mean, one thing we've tried to do is kind of find those students that will be able possibly to work at a fourth grade level, and then to do some group teaching. And that's can save some mental capacity for the teacher to teach one math lesson. They're still doing a little bit of juggling within that, but it might look more like one math lesson. In another grade band, we're doing a little bit of walk to math time where we're splitting and spreading apart, where teachers can focus a little bit more on one small group.
I keep thinking of like the one room schoolhouse.
To be really honest with you, those splits are not, it's not ideal. I understand why we've done it, but instructionally, it's not best for kids and it's not good for teachers. And when you split kids and then continue to move those splits so that it's not a consistent split each time, sometimes it's third and fourth grade, or sometimes it's fourth and fifth grade. You're making the job of the teacher in the schools to make any sort of school improvement goal harder.
Makes sense.
The other question I had was, do you have any sense of what's behind the differential with the fifth grade scores compared to the other grades? You know, just, it's a particular cohort, it looks like, looking on the graphs, but what?
But if you look at that, it's also mirrored in Washington State. So it might also have to do with the test items on the fifth grade SBA for that particular.
Well, although when I look at the Smarter Balanced ELA, Washington State's kind of humble.
It's meant to, so
And
that
then-
because
then
they
we need it.
they renorm that line over time. It's gonna be renormed over time. So it's meant to, over time, a balanced assessment is meant to be flatlined like that. You shouldn't see any spikes if it's normed correctly.
Okay,
But then when you see the cohorts at it, then sometimes the luck of the draw is that the test questions better align with whatever the majority of the kids were taking in curriculum, because they mix up the questions out of the things every year. So it looks more like, to me, like that was an assessment, that year's assessment for fifth grade was a little easier than others.
And I can add a couple of things too. You know, with the state graph, there's, I don't know how many students are in each grade level across the state, probably tens of thousands of kids. So with the data pool that large, you're gonna get a lot of smoothing out. With a small data pool like we have here, you're gonna get spikes and bumps based on just who's in that grade that year. Our fifth grade last year was our sixth grade this year, which just on average is a pretty high performing cohort. I don't know if that's the same across the other schools, but that could, Mount Baker as a whole is a pretty small data set. So even at one school, that could bump district averages in that situation. If we're getting high scores every year at fifth grade, then one might say maybe it's the teachers working in that grade. Or if we see that bump going up every year, like third grade, then fourth grade, then fifth grade, then maybe it's more that
Yeah.
particular cohort.
Yeah.
So it really just kind of depends over time on what the data is telling us.
But I really appreciate the clear and direct focus on the basics, the reading, the math and the science, and encourage that as we're looking at that data that we'll see improvement. I feel like this is much more clearly presented than I've seen in the past, and it feels like it's more intentional and more strategic. So I find that all very encouraging.
Thank you.
yeah, it'll be interesting as we revisit this again later in the year.
Yeah, so for our next steps, starting in January, you'll have opportunities to visit each of the schools again, but individually for longer periods of time. And by then, they're gonna have their systems humming along, hopefully, right? And so the things that they're talking about now, they'll be able to talk about what worked, what didn't. Again, you know, either leading or learning, but we're gonna be moving forward.
I have another question. It just occurred to me. Todd, I feel like maybe in one of our past site visits, you had talked about measuring data spring over spring because you felt, and you can tell me if I'm wrong in my summary here, but that you felt that that was a better measure of the teacher's efficacy because it didn't have the fall backslide in it. Do we have a sense of how much this sort of opening set of data might reflect that backslide for some of the things? Do you think that that's a part of that?
Next year, at this time, you'd be able to talk about that, but this, I'm sure it's there.
But we can't
But
measure
we can't
it that
measure it.
first year.
Mhm.
with
One
the-
data point.
Yeah, but
Okay.
next year at this time, you'd have a sense. See.
So I'll
There's all-
ask that question again.
There you go, yeah.
Table that.
Good memory though. Yeah, there's always a little bit of a summer slide. There's a little bit of that catch up that takes place every fall.
And that's helpful to know because we want to catch them up. We need to be able to measure that we're doing that, but then also we're looking at long-term shifting the needle beyond that backslide that happens over summer.
Yep.
I think the spring over spring is helpful too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you guys need to get home, don't.
All right,
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
So next up is board study session on the strategic plan, purpose and principles, and this meeting is drawn up.
So last meeting, we talked about kind of the outline for the strategic plan. And one of the first foundational steps was to get guidance from the board on defining the purpose of a strategic plan and just some of the principles to guide the work. What I'd like to do tonight is, so you have this document in front of you, and I'll be kind of just a reporter for the conversation that I'm hoping the board can have around maybe using some of the ideas that are here as a place to start, but it's totally okay to say, let's take that one out completely. There might be other things that you want to add in. But by establishing this tonight, then at our, I think at October 25th board meeting, is it the 25th or the 26th? We'll engage in looking at our current strategic plan and some of the, use some of the design process principles to evaluate what's working for us, what's not. And again, that's gonna provide the information that I'm going to need and the information that the steering committee is going to need to get going with some of this work. So before we start this, are there any thoughts or questions before we begin? No. Okay. So it's kind of exciting. We're like actually embarking on this process. Let's start with our defining the purpose. And so the starter ideas are to provide a clear direction for the district over the next 3 to 5 years, align resources, initiatives, and decision-making to shared goals, engage staff, students, and families and community in shaping the future, and establish measurable outcomes to hold ourselves accountable. Anything we'd like to add, change, take out?
I like the measurable outcomes part. Is that, I don't know. I don't remember much about the old strategic plan because we never really looked at it. So that much as we probably should have. But like all of these things, having something to point to that I need to accomplish or I want accomplished is definitely helpful for me. So I don't want to take that one out.
Other comments on that? This? I think, you know, you look in the guiding principles for data informed component. To me, somehow it needs to be expressed in the purpose part too, because as we look through some of the great challenges we have with academics, honing in, if our purpose is really to hone in on right into those specific challenges. We have things, if you look in the current strategic plan, we have things that are ongoing that stay ongoing. And those needs we just keep meeting on a regular basis. But I think what I'd like to see us focus on differently than maybe we've done is dive more into those weaknesses, so that we can measure what it is that we really need to do academically, and then shape our work around how we hope to get there, I guess. Because
So like, in terms of like what a purpose of the plan would be, then it would be that it's a tool to inform our needs and celebrations, like so that we're using data to then make those identifications. I'm just taking notes.
you can get your
Never done this
AI to
before,
fix
so,
my
yeah.
language, but
To me, I think I'll feel like we're on the right track on our clear direction if it feels exciting. I know that's kind of a wishy-washy way to say it, but that's kind of how I feel, and if it feels exciting, it's probably fairly straightforward. Not a lot of words, you know, like, so that wanted to comment on that.
No, I know what you mean. You can get bogged down in all of the words and like to talk, like the,
What
you
you
know,
feel like you should say versus.
right, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
what sounds good.
You know, I think that's part of the reason why I didn't really look at the old strategic plan that often, was because it didn't feel like I could relate to it. I mean, like I knew what it was saying, but it was so much stuff, just I don't want to say gobbledygook, but you know what I mean? Just
Right.
smart people words.
Right.
So not that I'm, you know what I mean? Just
that's
like
we do here.
it's, yeah. Just,
And part of the action oriented is, I think we want it to be a working document. It's one of the things where we failed last time, was not incorporating it, and we started to get there towards the last year. So just to make sure it's really designed to be incorporated into our ongoing operations. And I think I mentioned before, about enrollment. I mean, I wouldn't say we should make a goal, but it's just one of the things that I'll be thinking about is this a plan that is going to help us build our enrollment and point us in that direction? That really comes down to programs, and we've got some real strong programs that we want to bolster and lead with to help grow, and at the same time, we've got some weak spots that we want to shore up, like some of the academic stuff that we were looking at. So a principle would be, said this before, someone moving into Whatcom County from California, they can go anywhere they want. Why choose Melbourne? be looking at it from that perspective.
That's a good-
I think, Ed, your enrollment also fits in well on the guiding principles under accountable, because it's one of those kind of catch-all measurements
Right.
that doesn't catch any one thing, but the totality of
Right.
everything.
And I think it's important, like Ed said, the weaknesses are important to make it where we follow, but it's also darn important to showcase our stuff that we're excellent at already, so we don't lose excellence, right? So we're gonna build some, focus on all that and focus on, make sure we split it evenly per se, so we don't lose our strong points.
Yeah, that's a really important point, Jason. Like, for example, our CTE program.
Yeah. And then as long as I've been on, we started, when I started on the board, it was not followed much at all. Of course, there was a lot of stuff going on when I started, but I think the last little bit, in the last year, and we've changed, and whether we've meant to or not, I feel we've done a better job following kind of what we had. So I think having a new one's gonna be going in that direction personally.
In some ways, your current strengths kind of provide a pathway for those areas of weaknesses. How did this area get to be strong?
A lot of our most successful programs have had people are led by people who've been in that position a long time. And so we don't wanna keep great people for a long time because you're investing for the future, right? On the point of inclusive, I think, as you're asking for people to participate in this and maybe outside of normal working hours, part of the way we want to promote that is, and follow through, is making sure people know that this isn't going to be set on the shelf, right? This is going to be part of our working, and I think that'll encourage people and make people excited to participate in this, knowing that this really is going to have an impact on our school district for the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think I mentioned before with broader participation, I think it helps to have some sort of basic, whether it's data or other information, rather than just say, what do you think we should do? But whether a presentation of, here are some sorts of options, or, something that people can sort of weigh and better understand what it is we're getting at than just a too open-ended question that doesn't give enough to really weigh what the possibilities might be. Like a series of leading
I think
questions.
we're off to a good start with transparent, by the way, with the presentation we had on the numbers. I mean, even though that was painful, that is transparency, and I think that's what people are looking for. And also it goes into the data informed aspect of it as well.
I'd like to add a guiding principle. That our process and then whatever we create out of it models to our students and to ourselves, learning, we're modeling learning, growth mindset, like that we're leading by example, that we're curious, that we reflect, that we self-monitor, we share progress openly, we adapt, for continuous improvement, right? Like, I want to see it embrace those values in that sense of we do what we ask our students to do.
Yep.
Yeah. You know? I'd also under purpose, I mean, it's really obvious, but it's unsaid. It's sort of that really high 1,000,000-foot view. Like, it's our mission. The reason that we have a strategic plan is to measure whether we're meeting our mission. And our mission is what? To graduate kids, to get them ready for their next steps, right? Whether it's career or college. So I feel like we need some sort of purpose about, and maybe we can squeeze in mission fulfillment into like provide a clear direction for meeting our mission over the next 5 years or something like that. But then I also think the bigger purpose too is to make sure that our students are successful and have a sense of belonging for all of them. Right? Like, the goal is to ensure that our students are successful and that they feel a part of this place. Yeah. I mean, I know it's what we're all trying to do, but sometimes we need to just say it right at the top, because that's the bigger goal. We want them to do well.
Yeah.
We want them to have excellence.
Yeah, I think your student success, your sense of belonging, I oftentimes think that the shortest path between 2 points is not necessarily a straight line. That the sense of belonging, and you think, well, what does that have to do with academics? But it really does have a lot to do with how a student engages with everything. If they feel
Connected.
and part of their.
Well, that's why, that you've got different camps in education where, some people want to focus more on academics and others want to focus more on SEL. And it really does need to be a balance, because as a third grader, my ability to be able to read at grade level does a lot for my sense of well-being and my sense of efficacy as a human being. I can come to school and I feel good about myself, versus I come to school and I know that I've got to have double, triple dose of reading because I'm one of the low kids. And so it's just kind of perpetuating some of those sense of failure for kids. That's not our intent at all, but that's why we need academics as strong as our social emotional support. I think it's a good start. It's ambitious.
Yeah.
Good.
So we're scheduling for October 23rd meeting, taking out our 2020 to 25 strategic plan and kind of looking at it, both evaluating it and looking at, so how do we approach this based on how did we approach that? And sort of as a baseline to sort of understand what we're doing.
Good.
And then is that no, you're gonna miss it in November.
No, I'll make the board meeting in November, but I won't make WASDA.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So you'll be here the 23rd. It's not until
Well,
later.
23rd, and I don't think we have a second board meeting in November because
No, the 23rd of
October.
October.
oh, October, yeah, I'll be here.
October 20th. Yeah. Okay. Good. Anything else you want to on this document?
I think it'll serve us well.
Give you something to work with. Good.
might be helpful to think about ordering the bullets sort of loosely in order of priority. I haven't thought through what that,
We have the priorities broke down quite.
no, but I mean, you think about like student success might be
Very good.
up there because that's sort of the umbrella that everything else falls under. Doesn't have to be perfectly right.
I did move so create a plan to ensure we're creating schools where students do well and feel a strong sense of belonging. I did move that up to the top.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So next up is board action items. We have policy review and before we get into the individual policies, just if you could give a broad overview of at least from your take, those policies that if any that are more rote and those that we will introduce at this time and probably work, revisit at a later meeting.
So policy 6100 revenues from local, state and federal sources. That, and Tammy, I'm gonna let you jump in on this one too. That one is more of a just procedural thing that needs to be updated every year.
Yeah,
And so
for grants.
So this would be one that I would recommend for first and final this evening, because there really aren't a lot of changes there, but it does clarify there are uses of enrichment levies in response to audit findings. And so we need to have this in place for audit purposes. The next two that, and so we've got four more, and I kind of, even though there's four, I kind of think of them as two groups. So policy 3206 is on pregnant and parenting students. And this policy affirms the district's already existing commitment to providing equitable environments and a discrimination-free environment. However, there are some new state and federal laws that just requires school districts to make sure that we're also specifically protecting students from discrimination based on childbirth, pregnancy, and other related conditions. So this is a brand new policy. That's why when you look at it, it's all in blue. And I did do a little bit of research on this because even though I know at the federal level, some of the 2024 Title IX regulations have been rolled back, at the federal level, adopting this policy still ensures that the district affirms the protections of pregnant individuals. So, and then policy 5212, parental, family, marital status, and pregnancy or related conditions of staff. That wins an award for one of the longer titles there. That is also along the same lines of a new policy that has non-discrimination protections for employees. It aligns with both the Title IX with the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act and for the Pump for Nursing Mothers Act. And so it's just some of these new laws that have been put in place that we now have policy that reflects, we know what to do within that. And so I don't think those are too controversial in and of themselves, but they are brand new. So I'll kind of let the board decide and discuss whether you want to do first and final on that. And then the other grouping there is policy 2020, course design, selection, and adoption of instructional materials. This is a revision, but there were some requirements. The state had some updates on definitions and processes for selecting and adopting instructional materials. So new RCWs and WACs, this policy now keeps us in line with that. Requirements for diverse and inclusive curricula and just how we look at and use our instructional materials committee. And then policy 2021, library information and technology programs. This updates or modernizes language around how our libraries and information technology programs reflects current state standards. And so as technology continues to grow, and we talk about digital citizenship, informational literacy, and technology integration, this policy keeps us up to date with that.
Well, now let's go through them one by one then. So start with my Baker policy 6100, which is basically review which we do an annual review of that policy. I'm trying to get my.
David, do you mind putting that one back up on the screen?
Yeah, maybe that'll help, because it's, for some reason, this thing is stuck.
There's not a lot of language change, it's just, looks like there's a couple removals of some RCWs, or maybe they changed the numbers on those. But I don't see that changed.
I'm looking at the procedure. Always gets me.
I know.
So.
Yeah, and I don't think an issue of language as much as just a requirement that the board actively.
Yeah,
Approves
this
it here.
one we're required to review every year. We don't have to change it at all. But we just have to check off that we had reviewed it. And,
Good.
yeah, I've reread it again, and I don't. If there, I would entertain a motion to. I guess it's not adopting the policy, it's approving a review or reviewing the current policy. What action, Tammy, do you remember what action we're taking
Just
here?
approved the review.
Hmm?
I think last time we just approved the review.
Okay, so
Accept the document.
a motion to approve our review of policy 61.
Motion to approve reviewal of policy 6100. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, next is policy 2020 course design.
I had a couple small typos. Sorry. 2020. And sometimes they're hard to see when you've got track changes going. Where they are. I do, I made notes. But if we could pull, if it's not too much. I've got it too, but. 2020? Yes. Okay, the first one is in the very first sentence. The board recognizes its responsibility, and then if you take all of that out, responsibility, improving and growing, we need to keep them 4. And then the second one is still on page 1. It's about 2/3 of the way down under supplemental instructional materials. The very end of that first sentence, there's a typo with the spelling of discretion.
Right.
We put these in intentionally just to see if you guys are confused.
Yeah.
We are.
Yes.
Yeah. I always just assume you fix them, so I
Yeah.
don't think about it. And then on page 3. No, sorry, page 2 of 3. Hold on, I gotta find it now. Adapting of, where is that spot? Hold on here. Oh, it's, yeah, it's the board is responsible for adopting of all core instructional. We gotta take out the of, it's under the section selection and adoption of instructional materials, second paragraph.
What is responsible for adopting that one?
For adopting, take out of, right after that blue insertion of adopting,
Oh, great. Okay.
that was it.
Well, there's wording change, but I don't think there's any significant
No.
meaning change in
None.
this. Unless there's any further concerns, this is another one I would recommend for first and final reading and adoption.
Motion to approve Mount Baker policy 2020 with those changes.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, and then next is I'll make a policy 2021, library information technology programs.
And this was just take the removal of some unnecessary extra words. Just changed. Or they added a new RCW.
Yeah,
That's definition.
On the second paragraph only reads, the district's library and technology programs are staffed by teacher librarians. At the elementary level, we may be overseen by teacher librarians, but I think, am I right, Bridget, that we would be, the word calling them staffed by teacher librarians is a bit inaccurate.
You're accurate. Yes, we do have a lead librarian for the whole district, but it's not staffed daily by a librarian.
Maybe administered, I don't know, what led, what, something, some other word than staff, because
Maybe
that we're saying
overseen.
something that we don't have actually in place, nor do we have the money to have it in place.
Oversee.
Overseeing.
Yeah, overseeing.
Well, and I guess you could say with the classroom teachers to develop students' information and technology skills, and then it takes out to help all students, but and that is directly after that change for the staff.
So we still need the two.
We still need the two help
Yes,
all
you want the
students.
two, but
And this is. Yeah, you could take out the second two.
Yeah, that can
Could leave it. You could take that.
Any other changes? This one with those minor changes, I would suggest we approve this one for first final reading.
motion to approve Mount Baker policy 2021 first and final with the changes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay. Next is Mount Baker policy 5012. Parental, family, and marital status. Wait, did I miss one? I thought there was.
No,
That's
that's the
right.
right one.
You're right.
5012.
Okay, 50.
Yep.
Well, we had,
no.
no,
most
we've
of them are all-
got the pregnant and
different
parenting
ones.
students, so that's policy 3206 is
Depends
the
on which
next one.
one.
I'm looking at this.
So we're looking at 3206.
3206, yeah, that, number wise, that would be.
We've never had one like this before, so I feel like we looked at this one before, but you're saying it's all new.
Yeah, I mean, there are other policies that, to Ed's point, when we were speaking about this earlier, do cover some of these same ideas, but,
That's
yeah.
So that one and the next one, we don't see in our board docs.
You don't see what?
In the board docs.
they're in there.
Hmm?
It's in there.
They're in there, I clicked on it.
Yes. Oh, okay, I was not scrolling far enough.
I had a couple thoughts to share on these policies. Both the basically parenting, pregnant parenting students, and then there's one for pregnant staff, and I'm prepared to vote to approve both of these because we really don't have a lot of time and resources to make changes. But I wanted to articulate a couple thoughts around these. So we're on the one on students right now, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot of language in here about non-discrimination, which is certainly understood. When I read the policy, I guess I was expecting a little bit more relevant to, thinking from the perspective of a pregnant student. There's not a lot in there. I would have thought, about things like counseling for stress, maybe prenatal referral or childcare referrals, things like that. These are kind of cookie cutter from WASDA. I guess they have to be because they have to apply to every school district in the state. And I appreciate what WASDA does in implementing the policy. I guess my thought is, once we maybe solve some of our other problems, we can return to these and kind of like fine tune it a bit for our school district a bit more. And what
I
we're
think
interested
some
in.
of what you're talking about, I think does show up in the procedure a little bit.
Okay.
So on page 3 of 5 in the procedure, it says reasonable modifications may include but are not limited to, and some of them are like counseling and changes in schedule or course sequence.
Okay.
So some of those kinds of
That's
things
good.
are there.
And so would people have access to those procedures, or do they only have access to the?
They have access to both.
They have access to both.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good. I was also going to say, I was happy to see a policy that both these policies acknowledge the biological differences between the sexes. So I think that's a step in the right direction. I have to say,
Okay. Thank you.
off topic, but
Okay. Are we good?
Yeah, so this is a new policy if there's, but it's written to align with state law.
And I feel it reaffirms things that we are already doing, but it's just more specific and just
Mhm.
spells it out a little bit more clearly for.
As well as Title IX, so it's I don't know if we would gain anything by waiting to approve it for first and final reading. So I would recommend we adopt policy 3206 for first and final reading.
Motion to approve policy 3206, first and final reading. Second.
Did you second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then we're back to policy 5012, which has to do with same subject area for staff.
I guess my only thought, similar to the last policy on potential changes, again, prepared to vote to approve it. I think in somewhere in this, it says it will treat pregnancy the same as any other temporary medical condition. And, you know, my thought on that is pregnancy is different from any other temporary, it's something special. You know, as a child, learning, educational institution, you know, I think we should look for opportunities to share our excitement, encouragement, and admiration for people that decide to have kids. And, you know, if we ever had a chance to build that into our policy, that would be great.
We do have to be careful with our excitement. Because parental status is a protected class, with it being not a parent or a parent. And some employees who choose not to become parents have to feel that policies are not to their detriment. Not just feel, but experience that the policies aren't to their detriment, so that there's no special privilege given to parental status, if that makes sense.
But, yeah, and I think if you read, so the same policies as any other temporary medical conditions for all job-related purposes. So that's the important clause in that statement, because what it's saying that every time you have a condition that whether it's pregnancy or say cancer treatment or something like that, each one of those temporary conditions are treated with the same in the same manner, in that you get the same, whatever the law says.
I understood that.
Huh?
I understood that.
Yeah, so I think that's really the intent there. Yeah, that's. So it's, you know, basically it's focusing on retaining the employee's rights through pregnancy, which didn't used to happen.
That's true.
And so I think that's the need for it, which goes along with the celebration, right? Even though this one is new, in reading through it, I don't see any reason to not approve it for first and final reading. I don't think we'd improve on it. But that, so I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
Motion to approve policy 5012, first and final reading.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And I think that brings us to the end of our policy considerations. So now we're looking at upcoming events. We have a Mount Baker secondary visit on October 24th. Is everyone able, are you able to come?
Is that a Friday?
It's a Friday, yeah.
I might go.
You will or won't?
I might,
You might, okay.
I have to, I'm gonna finalize the schedule, well, before the 24th, but I do want to note that originally we had planned to also visit the Early Learning Center on that day, but they don't have students that day, so that's not gonna make sense. So it's just gonna be the junior high and high school, and so it won't be quite as long. So I'll get you that schedule within the next week, just so you know what to expect. But the elementary one took a little bit longer just because of the travel time between the three. So I would anticipate us being done probably between 10 and 11 that day.
So Emily had communicated with me about the board, Ryan expressed, the board had expressed some interest in revisiting the ASB class. And so
I can work that into the
yeah,
schedule.
if you can work that out with Matt and see if we put that in the schedule, I think that would be nice. I will be visiting on kind of the preliminary things on legislative issues and some, advocacy stuff. Next Wednesday, I think.
Yeah.
But they would like to get a chance to bend the ears of all of us, I think.
That would be.
They've done a good job with that.
Great job.
I think,
That also happens to be the deadline for them to turn in applications for the board reps,
Okay.
so.
well, maybe they'll either turn in more applications or somebody
Or
withdraw.
their application.
Then do I have it right that we moved the second January meeting to Friday, the 23rd?
Correct.
Okay.
Morning.
In the morning, perfect. I was like, why is that on there? Yeah. All coming back to me now.
Okay. I think that we have executive session, and we're estimating that to be approximately 45 minutes with no decisions to be made afterwards. And at the end of executive session, we'll reconvene solely for the adjournment.
Thanks for coming, Jen.
If you're ready, Tammy, we can quickly sign everything.
Yep.
You going to the little boardroom, I guess, or?
The little boardroom.
The little.
We have a little boardroom.
I would want to be in the a lot board room.
Yeah.
I can afford a lot.